faithfully delivering value and exploring great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today we're interpreting the book Weird Science. The book title isn't saying science itself is weird. It's about using science to explain weird questions. Like, do aliens exist? Have they visited Earth? Is Atlantis real? Telepathy? What's the deal with all that? These supernatural topics might seem like they're from tabloids or niche forums, but they've got scientific explanations behind them. The author of this book is Michael White, a British science writer.
He was the science editor for UK GQ magazine and has written hundreds of popular science articles.
In this book, White explores the hottest and most controversial supernatural phenomena, trying to uncover the truth behind these bizarre events from a scientific angle. And after reading it, you might agree more with the author's cover quote, "Reality is more amazing than fiction, and often way more interesting." The book covers 24 topics, grouped into 3 categories by origin: cosmic stuff, historical legends, and human-related things. In this talk, we'll first cover the basics and backstory of each category, then pick key topics from each for a deep dive to show the book's full picture. Before we start, let me emphasize, this interpretation just restates the author's views. If you've got your own thoughts on these topics, feel free to chat about them in the comments. First up, the core topic from the universe category, definitely aliens. The book's packed with alien talk. After all, searching for ETs might be a shared human interest. The author covers a wide range, like whether aliens exist, what planets could host life, and how they might get to Earth. Why? For these cosmic scale questions, the author uses quantitative analysis and logical deduction. For instance, when tackling "Are aliens out there?", he brings in the Drake equation. This formula was proposed by American astronomer Frank Drake in 1961. In the equation, the odds of advanced alien life equal the product of a series of factors. These parameters include the star formation rate, the probability of Earth-like planets existing, the probability of life-forming conditions, and so on. For scientists, this formula is a powerful tool. Once we calculate these parameters, we can quantitatively predict whether aliens exist. Of course, the scientific community hasn't reached a consensus on the values of these parameters yet. Through collaboration between astronomers, physicists, and biologists, they're narrowing down the possible ranges. So far, they've got some preliminary answers, like the first parameter representing star formation rate. Astronomers estimate about 10 new stars form annually in the Milky Way, so this parameter can be set to 10. Then there's the second parameter, which indicates the proportion of stars with planetary systems. This one's trickier. It requires estimating a star's age and size, plus factors like distance between stars and planets. Currently, it's estimated at 0.1 to meaning 1 in 10 stars could potentially host a planetary system. In short, after crunching these numbers, we get a quantitative analysis of extraterrestrial life probability. Based on the author's data, we estimate about 10,000 planets in the Milky Way might host alien civilizations.
But remember, that's just our galaxy, and the Milky Way is only 100 billionth of the entire universe.
So the author's super optimistic about advanced alien life existing and bases discussions on that premise. I have said
He explores hot topics like alien biology and how they might achieve light-year-scale travel, and more.
and the most attention-grabbing? Definitely alien abduction cases. In 1957, a young man in rural Brazil claimed he was snatched by strange creatures at midnight and taken to a glowing spacecraft. The poor guy was trapped in a jelly wall room and had blood drawn from him. Even weirder, a female alien then had sexual intercourse with him. This bizarre account became the world's first widely circulated alien abduction story. Afterward, abduction claims surged globally, especially after a 1991 U.S. survey, where 119 of 6,000 respondents reported similar experiences. Oh, well, if we extrapolate that ratio, it means over 5 million Americans were abducted by aliens in the last couple decades of the 20th century. The author calculated that if this were true, with 5 or 6 aliens per abduction, it'd require over 100,000 aliens working non-stop just to meet the annual quota. Clearly, simple quantitative analysis exposes how ridiculous this is.
In famous abduction cases, victims report similar details: seeing bright lights in the sky, touring alien spacecraft, and often having sexual encounters with aliens.
They claim aliens were collecting Earthlings' biological data. Regarding these events, the author points out several logical flaws. First, physics-wise, without faster-than-light travel, interstellar journeys could take millennia. This implies aliens visiting Earth would have technology thousands of years ahead of ours. So why would they spend decades abducting millions of humans just to study our species? They'd surely have more sophisticated methods than primitive abduction, let alone direct sexual encounters, to gather biological data. Moreover, many victims describe spacecraft interiors lifted straight from sci-fi books or movies of their era. Their accounts feature control panels covered in switches, levers, wires, and steering wheels, tech that'd be primitive for beings millennia ahead of us. Imagine dropping a medieval peasant into a modern home. Would they recognize computers, TVs, or microwaves? Of course, the author's common sense arguments won't sway true believers, but he's more concerned about the negative impact of these narratives. Mystifying alien tales do attract public attention and generate buzz. Long-term, though, this sensationalism reduces alien encounters to urban legend status. Once this perception becomes societal consensus, it could influence policymakers' research funding decisions, hindering serious extraterrestrial exploration. Moving from cosmic visitors, let's explore historical legends. Like, were there really vampires in medieval Europe? What about those mysterious giant geometric patterns and crop fields known as crop circles? And alchemy, can it really turn stone into gold? Such topics often originate in distant past, growing more mysterious through oral tradition in information-scarce times. Yet, with modern knowledge, these ancient legends appear less mystical when re-examined. For these, the author believes the best approach is gathering evidence and reinterpreting legends through contemporary knowledge. Applying this analytical method,
You'll discover vampire legends likely stemmed from porphyria, a medieval disease.
symptoms included severe anemia, pale skin, protruding teeth, and extreme light sensitivity. Early crop circles resulted from vortex effects, miniature tornadoes where dust-air friction generates electrical charges. These charged vortices flattened crops naturally, while later complex patterns were human imitations. Historically, alchemists, hoping to transmute metals, were doomed to fail. Elemental transformation requires nuclear reactors, impossible in medieval times. Among legends, Atlantis stands out. Its stories remain popular in novels, films, and comics. The earliest Atlantis records come from Plato's Republic. Plato wrote that around 10,000 years before him, a great land called Atlantis existed. Its people possessed advanced technology and brilliant civilization. Later, Atlanteans began invading and enslaving neighboring lands. This greed angered the gods. So, the gods submerged the continent with massive tsunamis, sending Atlantis to the ocean depths. Plato's book remains the sole surviving source documenting the Atlantis legend. By Plato's own account, he heard this from his great-grandfather Critias, who heard it from his grandfather, Old Critias, who heard it from his father, who in turn heard it from Athenian philosopher Solon. And Solon himself heard it from an Egyptian temple priest during his travels, a priest who possessed fragmented ancient texts mentioning Atlantis. This multi-hand retelling makes the story seem highly unreliable. What? Plato likely presented Atlantis as a metaphorical tale to advance his philosophical teachings, yet many later explorers and occultists remained obsessed with finding Atlantis. People's fascination stems from legends of Atlantis's advanced culture and sophisticated technology. They allegedly shared knowledge with ancient Egypt and Greece, leading many to believe Western civilization wouldn't exist without Atlantis. However, this book challenges that perspective. The author contends our ancestors possessed sufficient wisdom to develop civilization independently. No advanced teachers needed. Mystics attempt to discredit ancestral achievements. This approach insults all human civilizations. But enough about civilization origins. Let's examine actual search efforts for Atlantis. For Plato, Atlantis lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, now called the Strait of Gibraltar, connecting the Mediterranean to the Atlantic. Thus, people naturally assumed Atlantis was in the Atlantic Ocean. When Columbus discovered America, some mistook Native Americans for Atlantean descendants. Others proposed the Azores as Atlantis's remnants, a hypothesis quickly disproven. Geologists confirmed the Azores formed through plate tectonics alone. Currently, the most plausible Atlantis location is an area near the Bahamas. In 1968, what appeared to be man-made structures were discovered in this area, specifically a road about 6 meters underwater, composed of dozens of massive stone blocks, each weighing over a ton. These blocks formed a remarkably straight, even pathway stretching about 500 meters. Initially, this seemed clearly human-made. Many blocks were perfectly rectangular. However, recent geological studies revealed these limestone formations were natural seabed features, smoothed by ocean currents and erosion. Today, Atlantis searches continue, with theories placing it near Britain or even Antarctica. But analyzing historical sources, the author concludes Atlantis likely resulted from Plato's misunderstanding. Carefully reading Plato reveals anomalies. First, he seemingly multiplied all measurements tenfold. He described capital walls over 1,800 kilometers long. Even Plato questioned this, as it encircled modern London 20 times. Dividing by 10 makes the city size plausible. Plato also dated Atlantis 10,000 years before him, but that predates Egypt's civilization by 6,000 years during the Stone Age. Divide that time span by 10, and Atlantis aligns with early Greek civilization. Historians suggest scribes misread hieroglyphs in Plato's Egyptian sources, causing magnitude errors. The coiled snake symbol for 100 could be mistaken for the flower symbol meaning 1,000. Another confusion may stem from dialect issues. Plato heard Atlantis was larger than Libya and Asia combined, but Greek words for larger than and between sound nearly identical. So the correct interpretation might be that Atlantis was located between Libya and Asia. If these assumptions hold, the mystery of Atlantis could finally be unveiled, because there truly existed such a civilization in that exact time and place. The Minoan civilization of Crete. The Minoan civilization flourished in the southern Aegean around 1500 BCE, 1,000 years before Plato, with the famous Palace of Knossos as its remnant. But it was destroyed when the Santorini volcano erupted with the force of 1,000,000 Hiroshima bombs, triggering 33-meter tsunamis that drowned the civilization. This eerily mirrors Atlantis's divine punishment narrative. Archaeological excavations reveal increasing similarities between Minoan culture and Atlantis. For example, Minoan settlements featured massive circular ditches, matching Plato's description of Atlantis's capital. Plus, Plato described Atlanteans worshipping bulls, and bull frescoes dominate Knossos' ruins. These findings converge on a conclusion. If Atlantis existed, the Minoans were its prototype. The truth likely is, Minoan civilization fell to natural disaster. Stories of this catastrophe reached ancient Egypt and were recorded. Copied over generations, errors crept in, yet the core survived. Through oral tradition, these tales reached Plato, who documented them. Plato's endorsement ensured Atlantis's legend endured. Over centuries, retellings reshaped it into its current form. This pattern recurs in historical legends. An initial kernel of truth distorts through countless retellings until it becomes pure myth. Well, to unravel such mysteries, we must excavate buried evidence and patiently correct accumulated errors to restore original truths. Compared to cosmic exploration and historical legends, we humans are full of unknowns and mysteries too. Topics about ourselves. Some sound supernatural, but since they happen to people, they spark huge curiosity. We might have even experienced unexplainable bodily phenomena ourselves. But with modern medicine and biology advancing, Many human mysteries are getting solved. Take that famous urban legend phenomenon, near-death experiences. Daily people face life-threatening moments, from accidents to severe illnesses. Some survive against the odds. Survivors describe similar near-death sensations: sudden quiet, profound calm, or seeing a bright light. Early on, people called it some death ritual. But physiological explanations make it less mysterious. First, sudden calm comes from endorphins flooding the brain during trauma. They're natural tranquilizers. And when the brain's injured or oxygen starved, it can't process retinal signals right, meaning your brain can't color your vision fast enough so white light appears. So, near-death experiences are basically manifestations of impaired brain function. Other human marvels include so-called psychics walking on fire or nail beds. Beyond physics tricks, the key is training to temporarily dull pain sensitivity. Beyond physical legends, mental mysteries still fascinate. Telepathy sparks the most debate. Telepathy stories vary. Relatives feeling each other's emotions across continents, for instance. Some claim mind-reading abilities, and we all occasionally have telepathy-like moments. Over the past century, countless experiments have tackled this to study telepathy and explain how it works. Yet despite increasingly rigorous experiments, these explorations have almost never succeeded. The failures share a common pattern. Whenever scientists test them or use precision instruments, self-proclaimed psychics suddenly can't demonstrate their abilities.
They usually claim researchers lack true belief, or that instruments interfere with psychic signals, making it work only if you believe.
But this telepathy experiments became classic unfalsifiable hypotheses. Unfalsifiable means there's no way to prove or disprove it. For example, I could claim my cat created the universe 2 years ago and say your decades of memories were implanted by my cat then. Well, I think all unfalsifiable theories resemble this kind of circular reasoning. And modern scientists, all theories must be falsifiable. Like when Einstein's relativity faced skepticism until eclipse observations proved light bending matched his predictions. Telepathy research also suffers irreproducibility. Some get results others can't replicate. In the early 1900s, Zener cards tested telepathy. 5 symbols, one person mentally transmits to another in a separate room. Statistically, accuracy should be around 20%. But one test showed 588 correct guesses in 1,800 trials, way beyond chance. This experiment couldn't be replicated. No one reproduced similar results. In real science, discoveries require reproducibility. Others must confirm findings under same conditions, or they're discarded. Despite lacking falsifiability and reproducibility, many still deeply believe in telepathy. This is because they've experienced mysterious phenomena firsthand. Nothing convinces like personal encounters. Except those telepathy phenomena are likely psychological effects. Say you're idly queuing at a boba shop and suddenly remember an old friend. Then, moments later, you turn and spot them outside another shop nearby. We've all had similar coincidences. Explanations include having visited with that friend before or pure chance. A psychological phenomenon called masking effect might also explain it. Masking effect means strong sensory inputs often drown out weaker signals. Truth is, you subconsciously glimpsed your friend earlier but didn't register it amid distractions. Your brain already noted their presence, triggering memory recall. So, remembering conversations is the result, not the cause. Other supposed telepathy stems from unconscious sensory processing. Science fiction writer Asimov envisioned groups in his Foundation trilogy who trained senses to perfection. They could detect muscle twitches, pitch variations, and scent nuances. Thus, they analyzed others' emotions and thoughts. To observers, this seemed like telepathic superpowers. Actually, we use similar skills daily, though now we rely more on verbal communication. Human language emerged approximately 50,000 years ago. Before that, ancestors communicated through body language and sense. Like Panama's Kuna Indians, exceptional scent readers who sniff armpits to gauge moods during greetings, plus microexpressions, head tilts, eye movements, constantly signaling to us. We unconsciously absorb these signals, implanting their analysis in our minds.
So we mistake this for telepathy.
This unconscious signal processing evolved over millions of years, letting us respond faster to changes. Hearing this, you might feel pessimistic about telepathy research. But reading minds isn't hopeless. Our brains contain billions of neurons, each potentially connecting to millions of others. Demonstration between neurons generates faint electrical pulses. Capturing and interpreting these signals could decode human thoughts, like brain-computer interfaces, BCIs that detect tiny cortical currents during thinking. State-of-the-art BCIs use implanted microelectrodes monitoring single neuron activity.
This tech enables mind-controlled prosthetics and computers and helps sensory-impaired people regain perception.
Teams are reportedly developing BCI for direct mind-to-mind communication. Isn't that telepathy? Looking back, over a century of telepathy research remains shrouded in mystery. But BCI's, science's telepathy, advance rapidly through falsifiable, repeatable experiments. True, countless puzzles await solving as scientific exploration continues. Even this book's analyses merely compile current research, not final truths. New explanations will emerge with tech advances rooted in rigorous science and experimentation.
Seeking evidence?
Amid complex stories and sensational claims, we must stay rational, use scientific methods, and analyze multidimensionally to uncover truth. That concludes Weird Science. Find show notes below. See you next time.